Hi, I'm Dr. Don Boomgaarden, President of St. Joseph's College, and I'd like to welcome you to St. Joseph's College, Living Our Mission. Thank you for joining us. In this program, we will be discussing academic life at St. Joseph's College and our shift to remote modalities during the COVID-19 pandemic. In mid-March, we had to temporarily close our campuses and shift more than 4,000 learners to remote modalities due to the spread of the virus. Like so many other schools around us, our transition was made fast and furious. But I was confident we had the resources in place to ensure our staff, faculty, and students would succeed. To speak more about this experience today and our success is Michelle Papajohn, Vice President for Information Technology and Chief Information Officer, and Dr. Shane Miller, Assistant Professor of Mathematics and Computer Science. So I'd like to welcome both of you here today. I'm so happy to see you. Even in this strange environment of COVID-19, which has transformed everything around us and made our lives so complicated and different. And one of the big challenges for us over the last months has been to shift our entire college into a new format, into a new approach. And we were basically forced to do this in the spring semester in a matter of weeks. I think our first suspicion that we might have to close the college occurred around March 10th, and by the 11th, we were closed. We had a spring break after that, but still we had to come back with remote learning. And then we went ahead and finished the semester that way and did the summer as well, and now we're looking at the fall with a kind of hybrid approach. So, Michelle, you've played a huge role in helping the college to make this journey. Tell me a little bit about our approach and what has been working well for us so far.
Sure. We had a little bit of time before we actually closed and over the spring break to come up with our website that we called Carry On. So a play on the theme, Keep Calm and Carry On. And we put all of the materials that we thought that faculty and students and staff would need because the eventual was that nobody was going to be on campus. And we put all the resources together on that website. And it became a really trusted source of information for our entire community. Our technology education department had a lot of the materials already prepared, so it was fairly easy to move them into that new site. We also had, the infrastructure to be well positioned to make that change. We have a great learning management system, Canvas, and we are well above the national average in our use of that back in February, and I'm sure the national average has changed significantly now for everybody. But we were at about 77% of our faculty using Canvas, where the national average is about 61%.
And I think for the viewers, Canvas is a learning management system which allows professors to post their syllabi and do course discussions and all kinds of activities online. And we were quite advanced in using it before. Yes. I have to say, even in the course I teach, the North American Roots Music, had my own website when I was teaching each semester. And so even the run-of-the-mill professor was using electronic media in their classes. What a lot of people don't know about St. Joseph's is that even before the virus, St. Joseph had 27 programs, fully online programs. And so we're a very different school than some, where we had a very sophisticated approach to online learning already in place. And so this shift to full remote learning was something which was made, I think, a little bit easier because of that.
I think so. We've talked to some of our peers and they struggled more than we did. So the other thing that we had in place that I don't think very many people were familiar with back in January or February is Zoom. But by March and beyond, the world is using Zoom. And so that put us in a good position to be able to have those interactions where we weren't face-to-face in the same room, but we could still interact with colleagues, with students, and with the community for some events.
So I think that your team really did a marvelous job in kind of assessing the landscape and what's new and what's different. What do we need to do to serve the students and the professors? Did you have any particular strong concerns as you started down this? What were some of the things that were the most challenging for you?
Yeah, we knew we had the materials and we made them available, but we wanted to make sure that we created a sense of community with the faculty and opened up the lines of communication. We only knew what we knew, and we didn't know what the struggles of the individual faculty members were or of our students were. And as we had conversations with them, we learned more and more so that we could make more information, materials, documentation available to them.
Well, you're doing a fantastic job. I can tell you that already. I can say that as a professor and also as the president of the school. So Shane, we have this incredible challenge ahead, and you're teaching your regular courses in February and early March. What was it like for you to have to transition so rapidly to remote learning?
I think for me personally, it was coincidentally easy because some of the things that Michelle had mentioned that were already at the college, I was already using. For example, I was already one of the people trying to get more Zoom user license ability so that I could have longer Zoom meetings with my research colleagues. I have a long commute to the college, and sometimes I teach classes on one campus or another campus, so I was already sort of using a lot of technology to be able to talk to people and groups of people at long distance for like a year or two before this happened. So personally, like I said, almost coincidentally, it was rather easy for me to switch, all things considered.
And how about the students? How did they transition?
I'm glad you asked me that too, because well, for me, it was not so bad. A lot of the things that I had advantages on, I saw just a wide spectrum of the students and the challenges that they were facing. And it was really important to keep that in mind. And the students had a very, very difficult job. You know, it's in the middle of a semester,
Sure.
so it's not like the rules were set out at the beginning. The rules changed halfway through, and amazingly, to their credit, they were able to adapt to these new situations. Some of the things that you see that were so hard for our students were, did they have a reliable, good Wi-Fi connection? Did they have a quiet space at home to be working in? Or did they have family members and other people disrupting their ability to work in their own space? Then there's medical issues with the pandemic that affected a lot of students. So the fact that you saw this wide-ranging sort of experience amongst the students made it really difficult for them. But we all say it was amazing that they ended up almost, we all were in this together, sort of suffering together, and we made the education sort of the light part of it.
Well, in some ways, I think that the students are ahead of us because they use technology all the time. But they probably, many of them have not used technology for this purpose. So, you know, an analogy might be as a music teacher, when I've taught students before, I've had students, for example, who really struggled with their classical training, and I would go down the hallway and I would hear in the practice room them playing their favorite pop song, and I was like, that sounds like a completely different person. And I would say to them later at a lesson, I'd say, I want you to play your Mozart the same way that you were playing Elton John. And that transformation in the student was amazing. So in a sense, by unlocking the door to using technology for this kind of learning, we're kind of opening the door to development in a whole new direction for them. So they've transitioned from, you know, working perhaps using social media, perhaps doing video games, to now, you know, doing some serious work online and having to use technology in that way. Now you're teaching primarily math and computer science students. Did you have students in your classes that handled this a little bit better than others?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you could tell that there were some students who were better in a physical classroom and then really struggled off campus. Then you could tell that there were students who blossomed in this situation where now they didn't have to show their face. They didn't have to feel uncomfortable amongst other people. They sent the instant messages in the Zoom chat or the Google Hangouts or all these various technologies that allow us to do an instant messaging sort of communication with our students. And they really, really locked into that and were able to learn better because of it. So that was one thing I really noticed. Uses of online forums in Canvas. A lot of students were doing this already. They might be on websites like Reddit or something like that, where there's upvotes and downvotes, and then we have these abilities in Canvas. So I think some students, yeah, they struggled changing out of this normal situation where you go into a classroom. but for some students, they definitely benefited, and it was a wide range of all of these things.
Well, it's fascinating how the new modality can unlock the potential in different students in different ways. And as a professor, we've always had that situation where we have, the 4 students in the front row that kind of dominate the class. And now with this online approach, it's possible for all the students to participate in class discussions, for example, whereas before they might have been too shy to do so. Mm-hmm. Right? Has it affected the way that you think about your subject matter that you're teaching right now?
I think it definitely affects the way I think of how to deliver the subject matter. And I think this ties in with what the Carry On website is doing, which is you want to be able to include everyone in your message to how to move forward. And similarly, we're trying to figure out, okay, well, if I see that some students are better in person, some students are better with instant chat, how do I create a environment where all of these modes of participation are valid and encouraged, and this way everyone can sort of shine in their own way. So I don't know to what extent that's math specific. Mm-hmm. It's been quite hard writing formulas unless you have certain bits of technology. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the varied modes of participation and being flexible and being empathetic towards the situations that students are in, I think absolutely.
Well, this is fantastic, and we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and talk more about the academic life and shift to the modalities of remote learning that we're using now in a moment. Thank you. Welcome back to St. Joseph's College, Living Our Mission. We were discussing academic life at St. Joseph's and our shift to remote modalities during the COVID-19 pandemic. Michelle and Shane, this was a really exciting and different experience, and in a way, it moved into areas where both of you are very comfortable. The world of technology, the world of mathematics, the world of the modern in education. And we tried a few new modern approaches towards helping staff and faculty to navigate it. One of the things we developed was something called the tech chats. Tell us a little bit about those.
So we had our carry-on site, and a lot of people were using the materials that we had. But some people didn't know about it, and others were just really looking for some conversation. So it started very simple, small groups, 8 to 10 people for 30 minutes to an hour, depending. And we met with a group of faculty and just had a casual conversation. What were their challenges? What were they struggling with? Anything that they experienced that they didn't expect that was good or that challenged them. And it was really a great opportunity to get people together. And some people were from the Brooklyn campus and some from Long Island that maybe had never met or never worked together. And they shared ideas. There was some, commiseration. We're all in the same situation. But we were able to really develop that peer-to-peer, and some really powerful collaboration came out of that. It was a partnership between the Office of Information Technology, our online learning director, and our faculty centers for teaching and learning. We have one on each of the campuses, as well as our faculty technology committee. And with that large group of people, we were really able to engage faculty from a number of different areas, part-time faculty, our adjuncts, as well as our full-timers. We had a range of topics once we, got through some of those casual conversations and a little bit more open kind of chats. We focused our areas a little bit more based on what faculty were looking for. So how to engage students was one. How to do remote learning for a class that typically was a hands-on class. So what type of activities can they transition into the remote world? We did some fun things like a petting Zoom, and faculty brought their pets onto the camera. Some of that was involuntary as they were teaching or in meetings, the pets were behind them and barking. And but this, we made it an opportunity to share. And I think, really people got a lot out of it. So there was just that interpersonal communication, meeting some new people, further developing relationships with them, and then also a sharing of ideas.
Mm-hmm. So in a way, the tech chats was a platform for learning, but it was a platform also for people to communicate at a time when they were very isolated.
Yes.
And it also brought together groups of people that before would normally not be conversing on these topics. You mentioned that there were some really incredible discussions. Can you give me an example of a couple?
We were talking about art and how to teach art in the remote world. And we had some faculty members there from child study and other areas. And another faculty member actually gave the suggestion to an art professor of how to display what they're doing. So, you know, they took an iPhone and used it as a document camera where we would have been able to project that in the classroom. We don't have that capability from home. So they shared those kind of ideas. We also had faculty members create tutorials. So we had a chat, we recorded it and made it available so that people could review it even after that. They didn't have to attend live if they couldn't. So how to incorporate video into your class, how to be present in your class and make it, the students really feel like there's that faculty presence more often than them just going in and grading an assignment when it's done.
I think it's really interesting, and Shane, you can feel free to jump in here because I think you probably would agree with me that in the effort to create a remote learning environment, you know, I've had people say, well, how can that possibly be as good as being in the classroom? And how can the quality of the course be as high? And what I want so much to say is the amount of effort that our professors and our staff are putting into these courses is perhaps even greater than they would put into a normal course because they're transitioning onto a completely new platform. And I have to say, just in my own small universe of my course, I've really feel like I've had to rethink my entire approach and my entire course. And I think it's a much stronger course as a remote course than maybe my classroom course could have been. So it's interesting that the effort to do this has pushed people into out of their comfort zone, let's put it that way. And sometimes that's a good thing when it comes to education. What do you think about that, Shane?
Yeah, I think that, again, you definitely see places where you think, well, this could be good to just make this a staple going forward. And then you see places where you do see the students who, because of accessibility to Wi-Fi and the technology, they struggle a bit. So I think for me, it shines a light in areas and ways of delivering our subjects in ways that we hadn't really given enough thought before. And then hopefully if that comes back down K through 12 all the way before they come into college, then it will be even more normalized and then we can use the best of both worlds, hopefully.
And in a sense, this approach meets many of the students where they're at because they are very technologically savvy. They are used to working online, and it is a modality that they're very comfortable with. And in a sense, the classroom situation is a rather artificial situation for them now, and one which can be very inhibiting for them. So allowing us to tie into their world in a way gives us the opportunity to really get deeper into the mind of the student and actually do what we're really here to do, which is to provide them with the very best education. So ironically, this shift to online education has really helped push all of us into a realm that's closer to our students and taken us out of our educational comfort zones where we could happily go on forever. I mean, when I started teaching, I had a piano and I had a blackboard. and I do have some colleagues that still just have a piano and a blackboard. And I'm like, you know, there have been a lot of advances now. You can do a lot more things with the students. So it's that transition that has been really challenging. In the tech chats, the social interactions of the different groups, can you describe that just a little bit for our viewers, like what that was like for people to kind of to get out of their quarantine and into an environment where they could communicate?
Yeah, we had started doing the tech chats and we had a small group of people coming and they became the regulars. So they're sort of, I think, see each other as friends now when they weren't, you know, really even engaging with each other before. And so in the very beginning, when everybody was really quarantined and just in their homes and maybe going out grocery shopping, but not leaving for anything else. We had a few faculty members who live alone, who, didn't have a lot of social interaction. And so this provided that for them, in addition to the professional development that came out of it. And we ended up doing an 8-week series for the faculty who were teaching during the summer. So there were some people who were new to teaching online, and summer was a fully online semester. So we did an 8-week series with a chat during the day, which was a specific topic to enhance their teaching. And then in the evening, we did an open chat where we could just get together and chat and have some casual conversation. The group that was there, it was a very similar group throughout the entire process, about 10 different faculty members. And they're the ones that are sort of the regulars. And, they really kind of have become friends. And so somebody from child study and somebody from art and somebody from communication studies. And they're sharing ideas about teaching and about their use of technology that they probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to do before.
Well, it really pushes us also more in the direction of interdisciplinarity, right? So we're really trying to create a kind of connection between disciplines which frequently are siloed. Yeah. And it's really those moments where great creativity and great progress occur. So when we cross those boundaries between disciplines, that's when you start to really see exciting things. I mean, Shane, I know you see this a lot in computer science and mathematics.
Yeah, our department is very varied in where everyone comes from. So I do tend to, in my academic world, sit in my silo, but I love talking to other people because, like I said, it's not so much when I'm thinking about all these conversations, my subject matter, but it's the students, and the students are taking all these different classes, and so you hear what's going on in English or philosophy or art, and you can adopt these different things. And yeah, even within our department, we're learning how computer science professors and how they regularly have been delivering their courses. We're like, oh, well, that fits really well for us now, in this new modality, and maybe a little bit of a back and forth there. So yeah, you definitely see it all over.
Well, and I think it's interesting too that in the effort to communicate with one another, we have faculty and staff in communications about things which otherwise would have never happened. And if there's any silver lining to the cloud of COVID-19, then that would be it, that we're actually moving forward as a community, as a college, towards a better understanding of one another and greater respect for one another's disciplines and activities. So there's a good part to it, which I think should not be forgotten. Sometimes, ex malum bonum, out of bad comes good, and this is a good example of it. Well, I want to thank Shane, and I want to thank Michelle for coming in today and talking to me. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I hope that it's an opportunity too for our viewers to learn more about St. Joseph's College and the principles that we stand for. This spring saw the college and its activities really grow and become more and more powerful despite the crisis. And so even though we are struggling through this, I think that we're going to have a good year, and I'm optimistic for the future. Thank you both very much.